Hey everybody, it's Party Elite here with some juicy Mortal Empires information for you. I've been particularly curious about where all the lords are going to be starting in this mega campaign mode and thought I'd compile all their start locations and objectives for you. First things first though, Skaven Blight is now a thing. Marked as a strategic location for the Skaven, you can see it right here. Now many of us suspected that this would happen, and there you have it. We also have Hell Pit on the map, not as easily spotted at the start of any single campaign, but this strategic location for the Skaven once more is available for capture right here, just sitting there, looking pretty, I guess. But Clan Moulder is in charge of this one, and Clan Scryer is in charge of Skavenblight. Whatever that means for the future of Skaven DLC, well, if you click the eye at the top right corner of the screen right now, it'll take you to my video about Skaven DLC speculation, so you can check that out. Now, with that aside, let's take a look at the lords and their starting positions. Tyrion remains on Ulthuan, starting in Eataine with the city of Lothern under his command. Ulthuan is a familiar space, geographically speaking, and politically we do have some Dark Elves who have set foot on the continent to start. The Old World is extremely close to Ulthuan, perhaps a turn or two away. So it's from coast to coast. At most, you're going to take maybe 2 turns to get there, maybe 3 or 4 if you include the land transition here, of course. And their objectives are quite far-reaching, but you're going to see some commonalities in objectives. So first things first, we need to control in some form or another all the provinces of Ulthuan. So get Ulthuan under control. And then there are these 17 settlements that you're going to see very often across the board here that you have to gain some form of control over. So Couron, Altdorf, Castle Drakenhof, the Oak of Ages, Miragliano, Skavenblight, Kislev, Hell Pit, Karazakarak, Carrick 8 Peaks, Black Crag, Lamia, Kemri, Itza, Heshwatl, Naggaroth, and, of course, Lothern, which we do start with. And then we've got the Sacred Flame of Asuryan and the Gates of Lothern that both need to be constructed, and Archaon the Everchosen needs to be in a wounded state. Teclis has a completely different starting location, considering the removal of the Turtle Isles from the map. So he now starts at the Star Tower on the Volcanic Islands, and that puts him in direct conflict with the Vampire Coast. Now, his objectives include controlling 20 settlements through vassalization, military alliances, or of course direct ownership, and then, like I mentioned, there are those 17 cities that need to be put under control as well, again, in some form or another. Apart from that, he also has to build 3 Tower of Mages and ensure that Archaon the Everchosen does remain in a wounded state. Mazda Mundi still starts on the Isthmus of Lustria with Heshwatl under his command. He's got the Skeggi to his east, and his main push will be in a southward direction, though he can opt to go north as well. His objectives actually focus entirely almost on Lustria. We've got the requirement to maintain control of 14 provinces, again, direct ownership, vassalization, or military alliances, the Isthmus of Lustria, where he starts, the northern jungles of Paholasha, the southern jungles of Paholasha, the jungles of Green Mist, the Creeping Jungle, the northern Great Jungle, the Huahuan Desert, the southern Great Jungle, the Vampire Coast, the Volcanic Islands, and the Headhunters Jungle. So that is basically the entirety of Lustria that he's contending with. Then, of course, we have to build 5 Star Chambers and 1 Stellar Pyramids of the Southern Skies. Then we've got the 17 settlements that we've already discussed a few times that he has to get under his control, again in one form or another, and of course ensure that Archaon the Everchosen is in a wounded state. Kroq-Gar still starts in the Kingdom of Beasts with the Temple of Skulls. While this is the same province and city as the base game, Game 2, you can see that it's quite geographically and politically different. The mountain range to the west is gone, and instead we're seeing a lot more room to expand. We've also got some vampires to war with up over here, so that's going to be an initial conflict point, and apart from that, Kroq-Gar can rest assured that though they are far away, the Fallen Gates are still on the map. Now, his objectives are quite far-reaching. Like Mazda Mundi, he also has to have some form of control over Lustrian provinces, and he has to build 5 star chambers while also constructing the vaults of the old ones. Then of course there's the control of those aforementioned 17 cities, again in some form or another, and of course ensure that Archaon is wounded. Malekith starts in Naggaroth, but his options for expansion are a little different. There is little to the north and west, forcing him south into his mother's territory, which I'm sure he wouldn't mind, or he could go east, right across the Sea of Chaos and into these northern provinces over here, and get a sort of push down south into the old world. Now, he does have similar objectives to others, but different in some ways. Let's take a look at those right now. We've got control all provinces of Ulthuan, again either by direct ownership or through vassalization and military alliances. So that is the entirety of Ulthuan that needs to be put under Dark Elf control, but that's all the way down here now, so a long way to go to get there. And then we do have those 17 cities that need to be controlled, again, either through direct ownership or vassalization or military alliances. He needs to maintain 5 blackguards and has to have 25,000 battle captives, while also ensuring the construction of the Black Tower of Malekith and the Black Citadel of Anlek. Archaon the Everchosen, of course, also needs to be kept in a wounded state. Marathi starts at the ancient city of Quintex at the Titan Peaks, and while the start position is the same, the geography is very, very different. She's right at the cutoff to the west, making the south and southwest a fair bit different as well. Now this forces her east, naturally, but she also has room south or north right into her son's territory. Again, I'm sure she won't mind that, really. Now her objectives are mostly the same as her son's, with a couple of small differences. We've got this control all provinces of Ulthuan that they have in common. Again, direct ownership, vassalization, or military alliances. Same goes for those 17 cities that we've discussed a few times now. She also has to maintain 5 blackguards, get 25,000 battle captives, but the construction she has to ensure is that of the Dark Convent of Sorcery. And of course, finally, Archaon the Everchosen does need to be kept in a wounded state. Queek Headtaker has by far the biggest change, but maybe I'm saying that because it's what I'm most excited for. He starts in the Charnel Valley with Carrick Orud under his command, and that puts him a lot closer to Carrick 8 Peaks. In fact, more or less at its doorstep, just a few hops to go. Now, his position does mean there are a few different enemies around him. There's the Naggaroth Brotherhood that'll put him against some vampires. We also have some greenskins, of course. And then, as we push up, we'll be facing off against some dwarfs eventually as well, as we try to conquer Carrick 8 Peaks. That is one of his objectives as well. He does have some pretty different objectives compared to what we've seen so far. So, take back control of your most prized possessions, Carrick 8 Peaks, of course. And then he has to maintain 50% Skaven corruption across all owned provinces and in Peak Pass, the Eastern Badlands, and the Silver Road. So it's a very interesting approach there, more of a corruption mechanic as opposed to just conquest. Then we've got control of the following 17 settlements, either through direct ownership or through vassalization and military alliances, and that we've seen before. It's those 17 settlements. And then we have to maintain 100 units in total. We start with 8, which is a nice objective. It's an interesting objective, putting more strain on economy and growth, forcing a Skaven-like approach of massive hordes of rats. I love it. Skrulk still finds himself in Lustria, starting with Ukshol in Headhunter's Jungle. Probably pronouncing that terribly. Correct me if you know how to pronounce that, actually. But the geography is very different, though it's his old starting position. The southern tip of Lustria has been cut off, and the dwarfs in the region have been removed as well. So fantastic, less dwarfs to deal with. Now, that basically forces him north into the Lizardmen and any other Skaven armies and factions that might be up there. But of course, there is the option of the eastward expansion as well, taking him across these rather narrow seas, to be honest, right into the lands of what will eventually be Araby, and he might also, push up north and get into the old world if he wants to take a longer route. So, a few options there, but the geography has changed quite significantly despite having the same province name and province capital to start things off with. Now, objectives do include maintaining at least 50% Skaven corruption across all owned provinces, and the same across some specific provinces, including the Isthmus of Lustria, the northern jungles of Pahualasha, the southern jungles of Pahualasha, the jungles of Green Mist, the Creeping Jungle, the northern Great Jungle, the Huahuan Desert, the southern Great Jungle, the Vampire Coast, the Volcanic Islands, and Headhunter's Jungle. So that's basically Lustria that he's fighting Mazda Mundi for. Then we also have those 17 settlements making an appearance again, of course, and of course the maintenance of 100 units in total, again, making things feel a bit more Skaven-esque, giving that sense of scale and that stress to economy. Now we move on to the races of the Old World. Naturally, we start with the Empire. Karl Franz, Balthasar Gelt, and Volkmar the Grim all start at Altdorf in Reichland. Now, their objectives include the control in some form or another of the provinces of the Empire. So that's Nordland, Ostland, Auckland, Middenland, Talabecland, Ostermark, Reichland, Sturland, Averland, Wissenland, and the Wasteland. So, get control of all those provinces in some form or another, and then reclaim Sylvania, of course, from the Vampire Counts, or whoever might have control of it at the time. That's both eastern and western Sylvania. Then we do have to control those 17 settlements, again, one way or another, and we have to ensure the warriors and warhordes of Chaos are kept to the Chaos Wastes, while Archaon the Everchosen has to be in a wounded state. Thorgrim, Ungrim, and Grimbrindal all lead the dwarves from Karaz a Karak on the Silver Road. The objectives include, of course, clearing the Great Book of Grudges, and then uniting the dwarf holds, again, in some form or another. That includes Karaz a Karak, Barak Var, Varenka Hills, Dringorakaz, terribly pronouncing that, absolutely terribly, Krad Tomin, Misty Mountain, Carrick Azul, Spite Peak, Carrick Hirn, Migdal Vongal Barak, Karak Izor, Karak Kadrin, Karak Norn, Grimhold, Karak Ziflin, Blackstone Post, Krakadrak, Kazid Bord Karag, Siok Traken, Karak Dromar, Oakenhammer, and Zufbar. So that's basically the entirety of the mountain ranges in the Old World. They also have to reclaim the fallen dwarf holds again in some form or another. Karak Ungor, Mount Gunbad, Black Crag, Ekrund, Karak Eight Peaks, Karak Asgal, and Galbaraz. Of course, we also have those 17 settlements that need to be put under control again in some form or another, and the warriors and warhordes of Chaos need to be kept in the Chaos Waste region, while Archaon the Everchosen does have to be in a wounded state in this situation as well. Belagar Ironhammer maintains his starting position at Karak Izor at the Vaults, and while things are relatively similar, there is a new province worth investigating: Skavenblight. It's right there. Now, his objectives include, of course, taking Carrick Eight Peaks back. That is one of his important goals in life. It is his ancestral home, and he has to ensure that there are no grudges active in the Great Book of Grudges, of course. He also has to unite the dwarf holds and the fallen dwarf holds through direct ownership, vassalization, or military alliances, and of course those 17 settlements we keep talking about make an appearance here as well. Then we've got the Warriors of Chaos and the Warhorde of Chaos, who all need to be maintained, or rather kept, in the Chaos Waste region, and Archaon the Everchosen does have to be kept in a wounded state as well. Now, one important thing I want to make note of with the dwarfs, both Belagar Ironhammer and the regular dwarf faction, is the tech tree. Rat poison finally has a purpose. Now it causes fear when fighting against Skaven, and that is for all characters. So finally we see the true intent of including rat poison in this old world tech tree right from game 1. Bretonnian lords maintain their varied starting positions. Louen Leoncoeur starts in Couronne, Elberic de Bordelot starts of course in Bordelot, and the Fey Enchantress starts in Carcassonne. Now, these folks are all very close to Ulthuan, so you're able to interact with some of the new factions right away, and naturally, Chivalry and the Green Knight are still factors, so there are a few differentiators in this campaign. Now, let's take a look at their objectives. Of course, we need to get 1,000 Chivalry, become chivalrous, and complete the final Errantry War battle, and that leads to the Grand Campaign victory as Bretonnia. Wood Elf starting positions also remain the same, with Orion starting in Talcine with King's Glade, and Durthu starting in Arguelon with Waterfall Palace. Now, their objectives include obtaining Flourishing status for the Oak of Ages and winning the Defense of the Oak quest battle, and of course, Amber does play a key role in this campaign. Grimgor and Azag both start with Black Crag at Death Pass, and their objectives include, of course, destroying any greenskin factions that would oppose them, while occupying, looting, razing, or sacking 50 different settlements, controlling all the dwarf holds in some form or another, and of course controlling those 17 settlements in some form or another as well. We also have the requirement to earn 20,000 gold, or teeth, I guess it would be, through raiding, and ensuring that Archaon the Everchosen is in a wounded state. Now, of course, the Greenskins do still have fightiness and wawing, but apart from that, they're relatively similar to what we're already familiar with. Skarsnik and the Crooked Moon clan complete the trifecta of Carrick 8 Peaks factions, and the campaign map effects of that settlement do persist. Now, starting in Carrick Asgaraz, up here in the southern Grey Mountains, he does have some pretty familiar objectives. We, of course, want to take back control of the most prized possession of Carrick 8 Peaks, and apart from that, we're looking at more or less the Greenskin objectives in terms of provinces to control, the settlements, occupying, looting, etc. But the difference is that rather than 20,000, we only need 15,000 gold, or teeth, acquired from raiding. And of course, as it is with the Greenskins, we do have to make sure that Archaon the Everchosen does remain in that wounded state. Wurzag, the Great Green Prophet, retains his starting position in the Western Badlands with Ekrund under his command. Now, his objectives are the same as the core Greenskin faction objectives, but they don't mention anything about dancing his way to success, unfortunately. Now, with that said, his position now is relatively different geographically speaking, as a southward expansion is very much possible now. There's a lot of room to grow southward, and in fact, I believe the top knots are down here, as well as some dwarf holes have been added, so there's reason to go exploring new territories with Wurzag, the Great Green Prophet. Manfred, Heinrich, and Helman all start in eastern Sylvania with Castle Drakenhof under their command. Their objectives include controlling in some form or another 20 provinces, and also those 17 settlements that we've discussed a few times already. They have to ensure the warriors and Warherd of Chaos are kept in the Chaos Wastes region, and of course that Archaon the Everchosen is in a wounded state. As vampires, they do, of course, have vampiric corruption flowing through their lands, and raising dead, etc. is also still a factor. Vlad and Isabella von Karstein fly the von Karstein flag from Western Sylvania's Shortshaven to start, and they too need to control in one form or another 20 provinces and those 17 settlements, but that does add Castle Drakenhof and Mousillon into the picture as well, just forcing a little bit of expansion for the von Karsteins. Now, they do not care for the Warriors of Chaos, the Warherds of Chaos, or Archaon the Everchosen. It is just about reclaiming the glory of the vampire counts. The Warriors of Chaos, Archaon the Everchosen, Kolek Suneater, and Sigvald all start as horde factions up in the Chaos Wastes. They simply, for their objectives, have to raise 80 settlements, or sack them, of course, and they have to destroy the Empire, Bretonnia, and the Dwarves. So, objectives we're fairly familiar with, and honestly, the Chaos Wastes look a little bit prettier than I'd expect them to. I mean, it's not as barren and... okay, no, you know what? The further up you get. But that is all there is to say about the Warriors of Chaos. They start up in here right next to Bersonling's camp. They have the same Awakening Tribe abilities. They are, of course, a Horde faction, so they act as such as well. And some rather simple objectives to destroy all that is good. And finally, for now, the Beastmen. Kazrak, Malagor, and Morgur are all still commanding Horde factions. Objectives include raising 70 settlements, earning 20,000 from raiding, destroying the Empire, Bretonnia, the Dwarfs, and all these Imperial sub-factions, and of course winning the Fall of Man quest battle. Now, Kazrak, the One-Eye, does start in Estalia, right next to Skavenblight, in fact, and the others will start in the southern Badlands as Malagor and Morgur in Nordland. Now, Norska is coming soon, and chances are they're getting similar start positions and objectives as they already had, with maybe the addition of those 17 provinces or settlements that need to be taken under control as well. Now, that concludes our conversation about the starting position and objectives for all the lords available at the launch of Mortal Empires. The map is truly massive in scale, despite the cuts made, and I look forward to conquering it all under the various flags, starting of course with Queek Headtaker and Clan Moor. Who are you most excited to play? Let me know your plans of domination in the comments below. As always, thank you guys very much for watching, and make sure you subscribe for more Total War content. Until next time, cheers.